We'll go ahead and get started this afternoon. Thank you all for being here. Really appreciate all the hard work that you all put in at your schools and for the districts and the students that you work with. I worked in the classroom. I had an instructional assistant, paraeducator, superstar, rock star, whatever you want to call yourselves, because that's what you are. And if it wouldn't been for her in my class, I could have never made it. So I appreciate everything you ladies do for our schools and our teachers and our kids. I know it's y'all do the majority of the work, you know, so I really appreciate everything that y'all do. So first off, make sure everyone has a timer and one of these packets and a lifesaver and one of these mindfulness. Huh? What? No, not a stick. Don't get a stick. Those aren't mine. You can't have a stick. Yeah. Okay. So one of the things that we're going to be talking about a little bit is behavior management, and it's just going to be an overview. And you all are the expert on behavior management and how to not control, but how to handle situations in your classroom. I'm just going to be presenting some information. You're all going to give me all the answers, and we're going to learn from each other. Because, like I said, you're all the experts. You know what's going on. So first thing we got, everyone's got their book, right? So everyone got their book? All right, so we're going to be talking about chapter 15 in the book. It starts on page 138. And we're going to be looking at different forms in the back part of the book, which will start on page 213. So if you can mark 138 and page 213 some way, or just, put a sticky note in there or whatever. But that's the chapter that we're going to be looking at in this book. So first thing we're going to do is, I hope everyone got one of these mindfulness trifolds. And mindfulness is a way of getting kids to reconnect to the classroom setting. Sometimes our kids go out for lunch or they go out for PE and they come back in, they're wired, they're jumping around, being silly, just like I am, just like we are. And you have to do a mindfulness activity. And it's not a way of zoning out. It's a way of paying attention to your surrounding and getting back into touch with where you need to be in the environment that you're in. So first thing we're going to do is, there's several ideas in here. What we're going to do is, I want you to take the lifesaver that you have. Does everyone have a lifesaver? Don't open it. All right. I just want you to pick it up and hold it in your hand. All right. Feel the texture of the package. Yeah. Yeah. Don't open it yet. All right. Feel the shape of the candy, the treat that you have. What shape is it? Think about these things. Just what are you thinking about? What does the cellophane on it feel like? Is it cold? Is it slick? Is it smooth? Is it rough? Textured? Think about that. Okay, now, look at that lifesaver that you have and the shape and the color. Imagine what that tastes like. What flavor do you think you have? We already got one thinks this orange is going to be orange and I want a pineapple, but that could be a tangerine or it could be watermelon. It could be pineapple, right? Or it could be lemon. Just think about what the color looks like and what that represents and what flavor is that going to be. So now, put that lifesaver in your hand, still in the wrapper. Feel the weight of it. Just think about that. Yeah, that doesn't weigh anything. But if you've been out playing and you're all hyped up and ramped up still, you start concentrating on things like that, then you start focusing back on the environment that you're in, and you get back into the learning mode. And so, all right, now open up your lifesaver. Yeah. Ooh, finally. Oh my gosh, I gotta have one too.
Oh, I just have pineapple.
Oh, I hear. Good golly. We'll talk about this in a minute. This is ABC. The antecedent was open up that Jolly Rancher. Yeah. The behavior was, I want a pineapple.
She traded with me.
The consequence was, I brought her the pineapple. Okay, she got her way. All right, so now open up. Don't open it yet. Oh, did you? All right, open it up. All right, take that lifesaver. All right, smell it. Yeah. Fine. You sure? 100%. Okay, so right now, just imagine what that tastes like. Don't taste it yet. This smells like grape. I smell a grape. So I'd start imagining what grapes taste like. You smell pineapple. You can imagine, you can see what a pineapple looks like. You can tell with the texture of a pineapple. You can almost taste that pineapple. All right. Don't eat it yet. All right, go ahead. Drop it in your mouth. Don't crunch it. Don't bite it. Drop it in your mouth. All right. Now, what flavor do you taste? All right. So, yeah, and was it the flavor that you thought it would be? I got a green one once and thought it would be lime, and it turned out to be something else, you know. So, yeah, something like that. So, yeah, so what flavor? All right, so let it kind of dissolve on your tongue. What texture does that lifesaver have? Right. Is it hard? Is it soft? Right. Right. Lifesaver. Right. Yeah. Round. You can feel the letters on it. Right. Not anymore. One side of it's smooth. The other side you can feel the letters. Right. So right. Then I'm gonna. Right. No, I'm not. See, it's not crunched yet. I'm about to crunch it. So go ahead. Do you let that dissolve in your mouth? Some of our kids let that dissolve, or do you just crunch and go on and grab another one? Yeah. Right. So go ahead and enjoy your lifesaver however you want to. So thank you for participating in our little mindful minute there. It's just a way to kind of get us focused back on zeroing in on the environment and on our surrounding and what we're going to be doing for the rest of the afternoon. So thank you. And there's also mindful breathing activities that you can do. You know, you can do figure eights. Take your right hand, make an 8, breathe in, exhale, breathe in, exhale, breathe in, exhale. Come on, people, get your arms up here. Let's do an 8. Breathe in, exhale, in, exhale, in, exhale. And that kind of helps you focus on your breathing, and it kind of helps you, like I say, focus again on getting prepared to start learning. Right. So now the fun part. This is called behavior management. Of course, thank y'all for being here again. I'm Doug Smith, by the way. I didn't know if I introduced myself or not. So, pardon me. You better work. All right. So, our agenda or roadmap or whatever the heck you want to call it, where we are going with our little presentation this afternoon. See, I almost didn't. What is behavior? We're going to be talking a little bit about what is behavior, how do you define behavior, what does the word behavior mean to you. We're going to be looking at behavior ABCs, antecedent behavior consequence, and we'll look at how that plays into how our kids react or respond to us in our classroom. We'll be looking at some factors that influence behavior, and why do students misbehave? What are some reasons behind their misbehaviors or inappropriate behaviors? Then we're going to look at some behavior strategies, some tips, and we're going to be using the resources that I gave out, and we're going to be using those throughout. So first thing is, what is behavior? Son of a... it won't go the other way. All right. So what is behavior? If someone asks you what is behavior, give me an example. Give me what you think behavior is. Yes. How you act. All right, good. Anyone else? Don't look. Right. So all behavior is learned. Do you agree with that? Our kiddos learn how to behave by either the role models that they have, by watching their peers, by watching their parents or their grandparents or their guardians, by watching TV, by playing video games. Even animals learn behavior by watching and mimicking and recreating things that other people do or other animals do. Our students learn behavior. So if all behavior is learned, can behavior be relearned? So if I learn to eat with my hands, can I be taught to eat with a spoon? Right. So if all behavior is learned, then you can relearn behavior. So if you want to see appropriate behaviors in your classrooms from your kiddos, what do you need to do? Speak up. Be good. Be good. We need to model the behaviors that we want to see. We need to model those behaviors. We need to practice those behaviors with our kiddos. You know, if we want our kids to walk down the hallway, we don't just tell them you walk on the right side of the hall, your hands to yourself, or catch a bubble or whatever it is, quietly. We have to teach them how to do that, show them how to do that, model that behavior for them. We have to have those kiddos practice that behavior. And then if they mess up or make a mistake, we don't scream and yell and get all excited. We reteach that behavior, model that behavior again, practice that behavior again until they get it right. I always tell a little story. When I was in the classroom, I got to work lunch duty for a while. And kindergarten, you all know how kindergarten kiddos are with lunch trays and things like that. You got to teach them how to come in there, how to sit down, you know, how to open their milk and whatever. And then after that, we always had our kids clean up their area, dump their trays, and then set the trays up in the window to be cleaned. And I did this every day. We showed them, we practiced it, I did it, we walked through it, we modeled that behavior, and every day, you know, so for the rest of, as long as I was in there, we did it. And I would tell them, go through the step by step by step. Clean your area, dump your tray, stack your tray, thank you, have a good day. Clean your area, dump your tray, stack your tray, have a good day. Well, I missed a day or two. Come back to lunch duty the next day, I made it back. There was trash everywhere, there was trays in the floor, trays in the trash can, there's falling out of the window, and I was like, guys, what happened? You know how to do this. Well, you didn't tell us. So again, it goes back to, they knew how to do that, but I didn't tell them, I didn't remind them, I didn't correct them. So, all right, you're right. All right, clean your area, dump your tray, stack your tray, y'all have a good day. So just after you teach your rules or your expectations, or what the behaviors that you want to see, you have to model those behaviors, practice those behaviors, and provide corrective feedback to those students. All right, behaviors in action that's observable and measurable. If I came in here and I sit down in that chair and I just did this number right here, what would you think? So, what? You gotta speak up now, I'm old. Old ears can't hear well.
I said you were stuck up.
Stuck up. Please.
You don't want to be here.
Don't like nobody, don't want to be here. All right, so is that a measurable behavior? I was angry. That's why I sat down in that chair. Could y'all tell I was angry? No.
He was in a bad mood.
In a bad mood, yeah. All right, and that could be, but that's not measurable. The little fellow come in, sit down, and you say, oh, he's angry. Well, he may or may not be. That is not the observable action that you see. Observable means that you can see it. Measurable means that you can count how many times that behavior occurs. And objective means that we can all agree. Now, if I come in here and I grab this chair and I sling it against that wall, what behavior did I exhibit? I threw a chair. Yeah, I threw a chair. We can all say that was throwing a chair, right? You couldn't say I was angry because I may have been excited and saw a bug or something and threw it, you know. So scared me. Wah! So I'm just saying. But still, you can say the observable things, the things that we can see, we can all agree upon. The measurable things, I can count how many times I threw that chair, or how many times I kicked the table, or how many times I called you a bad name. And then we can all agree on that is what that behavior was. So our behaviors are observable, measurable, and objective. Behavior is not what the student's feeling, but how they show that feeling. Anger is not a behavior. That is a feeling. That is an emotion. How I exhibit or how I show that I'm angry or upset, or how I'm showing that I'm sad, or how I show I'm happy, that is the behavior. So a lot of times, he was mad because he didn't get chocolate milk for breakfast. Maybe he wasn't mad. Maybe he just didn't want chocolate milk that morning. So a lot of times we call an emotion a behavior when it's really not. It is just the emotion. Right. Good. And so behavior serves two purposes. Boil it down, there's 4 reasons for students to behave the way that they do, but the 2 main purposes of a behavior is to get something or to avoid something. I come to work every day to get a paycheck. I come to work every day to avoid having to stay at the house. Just saying. Sometimes our kiddos do their work to avoid from having to listen to you yap, yap, yap on them all the time. Sometimes our kiddos throw the papers in the floor because what do? You go over to them, oh, honey, let me help you. We'll get it done together. So they got something. They got you to come over there and do their work for them, and they avoided having to do it by themselves, which it may be difficult and embarrassing them. And so, just think about it. You either get something or avoid something from the behaviors that you have. Any questions? Comments? All right. Behavior ABC when we're looking at ABCs, we're looking at antecedent, we're looking at behavior, and we're looking at consequence. And a lot of times when we look at a behavior, what's the first thing that we notice in this ABC, antecedent, behavior, and consequence? The behavior. We don't think about the antecedent, which is what happens immediately before that behavior. And we don't think about the consequence, which happens immediately after the behavior. All we think about is this behavior. I saw little Dougie throw the book across the room. That was the behavior. That's all we're focusing on. Well, why? What was the antecedent? What triggered that? What caused that to happen? Antecedent happens immediately before that behavior. Maybe Miss Brenda gave him a math book that was too difficult, or an assignment that was too difficult. And he couldn't do the assignment, so he slung the book across the floor or across the room. Miss Brenda came over and provided him attention. The consequence was he got out of the work, but what happened immediately after he threw that book? Miss Brenda came over to that student and paid him attention and said, well, let's find something a little bit easier for you to do. So the consequence happens immediately after the behavior. A lot of times we think about consequences as punishments. What are we going to do to the student because of the behavior that they're showing us? And that's not a consequence. A consequence is how you respond to that behavior and what that student's done. And so we're going to do a couple examples, and I want you to tell me if it's an antecedent, if it is the behavior, or if it is a consequence. And we'll look at these forms too that I'll give you in a second. Okay, so Sarah hits a peer. Is that an antecedent? Is that a behavior, or is that a consequence? It's a behavior. Can we all agree on what a hit looks like? Yeah. And now when you're doing these and we look at these forms that have behavior of concern, you want to define that behavior of concern to the point that anybody could walk in that classroom and tell exactly what that behavior is. You know, that's why we don't say they were angry. And so I don't say she was being aggressive. You know, if Sarah hits a peer, you say hit, striking them with a fist or open hand or whatever. What is a specific, measurable, observable, objective definition of that behavior? All right, so that is a behavior. Teachers at another student's desk helping them with their work. Okay, consequence could be Sarah throws a book in the floor. That's a behavior. Why did she throw that book in the floor? Because the teacher was at another desk helping another student. So that could be an antecedent. It could also be a consequence too. I throw the book in the floor, as soon as I do, the teacher comes over to me. If that was the case, that's how they responded to the behavior, then that's the consequence. All right, let's try one more, or a couple more. This one's easy. Teacher tells Joe to leave the computer. Would that trigger a behavior, or would that be a response to a behavior? Miss Kim, you have to get off the computer. Oh, so the behavior was you did what? She threw the computer down. So me telling her to get off the computer was what? Antecedent. That happened immediately before that. And daggone it. Then I come up, Miss Kim, pick that computer up, please. Thank you. Right. And the consequence was I paid her attention, and then she picked the computer up. Thank you. Great job. It was rewarded by that way. So good. Another one. Joe doesn't move from the computer station. I'm sitting here. I'm not going to leave. You can't make me. Is that an antecedent, a behavior, or a consequence? That's a behavior, right? That's something. Joe's still sitting there. I'm not moving. You can't make me. So exactly. And then you count to 10, and then leave the room. Is that an antecedent, a behavior, or a consequence? Joe's still sitting at the computer. We ask Miss Kim, or we ask Joe to put the computer away. I count to 10, again. So I've counted that for several times, and then I walk off. That is a consequence, right? That happened because Joe wouldn't leave the computer. All right, so our forms that we want to look at real quickly are some of these ABC. Remember, antecedent, behavior, consequence. And this first one is an ABC card. There should be 2 sections. And this is just to help you determine if a what an antecedent is. Sometimes we go into a classroom, and I've asked to come to see a classroom or a student. I don't know, there's no antecedent. They just go off. Well, there has to be an antecedent. It may be something that you've said or something that you've done, but there's always an antecedent to a behavior. So in case you can't think of what some antecedents are, there's some examples of antecedents on these pages. Like the first one, attention's given to others. You know, sometimes our little fellows that we have to help the most desire or want most of our attention, and if we pay attention to someone else, what do? They do something to get our attention back to them. They have a behavior. They act out some way that we come back to them. And they have learned that if I act this way, teacher's going to come back to me, and then I get all that attention back. So they have learned that their behavior elicits a positive consequence for them, which is they get that attention back. So, and if your consequences are positive, you're going to increase the likelihood of that behavior happening. Sometimes kiddos say something or have a behavior, they act out, and we respond to them. We think we're punishing them by talking to them or directing attention to them or whatever, but it's reinforcing that negative behavior because they're getting attention. They're getting what they want or what they need. So you got to be very cautious about how you respond to certain behaviors, because that can increase the likelihood. If they're getting attention or if they're getting a positive out of that, you're increasing the likelihood of that behavior happening. You know, just like, you know, if I'm up here and someone says, "Oh, you did a great job," it might have been the worst presentation you ever heard, or may have told you stuff that you just thought was crazy. But somebody told me I did a great job. Guess what I'm going to do the next time? Do the same exact thing, right? So if I say, you be honest with me and tell me that was the worst thing I've ever heard, you don't know what you're talking about, thank you. We'll throw that in the way and keep these positive ones there. But I'm just saying, be cautious of how you respond. The next one is also a ABC checklist. And on this next one, sometimes you'll be asked to do an observation in your classroom to help the teachers to determine how often a behavior occurs, and you'll use a frequency count. You can count how many times a behavior happens. That's why you have to be specific when you're defining behaviors, because you can't count how many times someone's angry, but you can count how many times they drop a book in the floor. You can count how many times they wrinkle their paper up. You can count how many times, they smack or whatever. You can count those times, so that would be a frequency. How often does that behavior happen within an hour or within 10 minutes or within 15 minutes or whatever? So that is a frequency count, how often it happens. I think another one is a latency. How long does it take for the student to do, if you ask them to get on task, how long does it take them before they start task? You know, and we do a latency count to how many seconds, how many minutes, or whatever. If I give you an assignment, I say, all right, turn to page 15 in your book, do the first 3 problems. And I start a timer. And I want to see how long it takes before you get started on task. You may sit there for 3 minutes. Well, as soon as you start on task, that's a 3-minute timer or whatever. Then we want to lessen that time because we want you to get started on task quicker, and that way we get our work completed. So that's a latency. How long does it take them to get on task? Then we have frequency, we have latency, and we have duration. How long does the behavior last? How long does the meltdown or the temper tantrum or the fidgeting with the notebook, how long does that last? And that is a time frame as well. So this one does give you examples of frequency and duration and, like I said, intensity. This other one is a really good chart to use, because when we're looking at ABC, antecedent, behavior, and consequence, if we change our behavior, if we change how we respond to what the student's doing, that's going to impact, or that's going to have a major effect on that behavior. If we're always providing them with, if we never change the way that we approach that behavior or respond to that behavior, that child's not going to change. So behavior management is all about how are you changing the way that you respond to that behavior. Okay? And this one has, again, just some antecedents, behavior. When we're looking at these, we always want to start with the behavior. Then we try to figure out what is the antecedent and what is the consequence. Because if I don't know what the behavior is, yeah, that I'm looking at or that I'm concerned with. Yeah, it may be little Dougie's tapping his desk 100 times a minute, you know. Is that aggravating? Yeah, so what is the consequence? How do I respond? Stop! You drive me crazy. Yeah, outside. Get out in the hallway. Yeah, that's how you responded, and they keep doing it. So guess what? That wasn't a punishment. That was a reward for them. But if you figure out right before I give them a reading assignment, they have difficulty with reading. Right before I give them a reading assignment, they get nervous and anxious, and that's how they handle that. So that behavior was tapping the desk, and the antecedent was a reading passage, and the consequence was, oh, understand this is frustrating. Let me help you. I'll go over this with you and we'll get through this together. Work together on that. So anyway, just you got to change how you respond in order to have behavior change in your classroom. All right. Any questions? So what is an antecedent?
What happens before the behavior?
Exactly. Thank you. What happens immediately before that behavior? What is a consequence? What happens after that behavior? It's how you respond to that behavior. It's not how we sent them to the office or we set them in the corner or we gave them time out. It's how did I respond immediately after that behavior. And
There's some kids that you can't change because they want the attention whether it's negative or positive. So either
right.
way you go.
Right.
they-
That's exactly. And that's a good point.
Yeah.
That's when you provide them with that positive attention before.
Yeah.
And you got to know your kids,
Man, they're
build those
hard.
relationships. Oh, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. And we'll talk about some of that hopefully. But yes, ma'am, they are hard. They are difficult. But that goes back to thinking about, and this is a whole nother area we could get into. But you got to think about some of what are some setting events? What are some things that they're coming from? What's their home environment like? What, are they on meds? What is their educational level? What are their cognitive abilities? And when we look at these setting events, a lot of times we think of setting events as what happens in that classroom. A setting event is a classroom. That's not necessarily that all the time. Setting events is everything that's happened to little Dougie before y'all get him into your classroom. What are some trauma? What are some things that he's seen? With with quarantine and COVID and schools being shut down and all that stuff, there's a lot of mental health issues that our students are going to be having. And they're going to exhibit those in inappropriate behaviors when we get them into the classroom. So you just got to be patient and try to figure out what's going on with them, as well as you all. Y'all had those issues as well. There's a lot going on that we don't know about with each other. So just be patient, be kind. I know it's easier said than done, but build those relationships with those kiddos that you work with. I mean, that's just everywhere, yeah. And you find out what they like. Find out some things that you have in common. I don't know how many times I had to research My Little Pony or whatever the latest cartoon was or the latest Disney show, so that I could have something to talk to my little kiddos when they got upset and angry. Help calm them down. So good. The behavior is this daggone thing's not working. The consequence is going to be Steph's going to have to find her a new clicker. It's going to be the consequence because this. All right. So now let's look at some factors that influence the behavior of our students. These are some things that, like I said, influence their behavior. Duh. So the first one we want to look at is their diagnosis, educational eligibility. I hope it's all spelled correctly. Anyway, so what are some diagnoses that we have of the students that we work with? Autism. Oh, wow, yes. Any other things? Any other kids? ADHD. Good. ADD. Oppositional defiant. So those are some diagnoses. We have hearing impaired, vision impaired. Traumatic brain injury. Yeah. Oh. Yeah. I've got a
Nonverbal.
perfect example.
And I think a lot of them is they know what they want to say, but they can't get it out, and it's frustration.
Yes, and then what do? They act out. They act out because how frustrating would it be?
Because they're frustrated because they can't get you done to do what they want.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I agree with you. And that is very frustrating. So with those diagnoses, you know that they're going to have specific behaviors that they have. A little fellow with ADHD or ADD, I couldn't sit I couldn't sit in a seat like that for more than 45 minutes. I'd be lucky to make 45 minutes before I'm up, moving around the room, kicking my feet or sliding something across the floor or going to the bathroom or sharpening a pencil. I got to get up and move. So just be aware that these students that you work with are going to have to do that. They're going to have to get up and move and be able to circulate throughout the classroom. You may even build into your schedule a little walk break or have them do a quick errand for you. Or just carry a book from the back of the room to the front of the room and put in a different bookshelf. Just something to get them up so they can move about. You know, if you got a student that, like you said, is nonverbal, how are we going to have that student to communicate with us, and how are we going to communicate with that student? What is it, picture exchange system or whatever? Picture exchange communication system, PECS. Anyway, pictures. Yeah, I don't know how to do it, but these ladies, you know, I'm sure that you all have worked with the kiddos long enough that you have figured out what works with those kids and what doesn't. And if something doesn't work the first time, don't throw it away. You continue trying that. If it doesn't work, then you find something else. But if you find something that works, please continue using that. So what are some medication and illnesses? Allergies. You know, some of our little fellows may not be able to tell you when it's, you know, when the pollen's up, but they can sure tell you by their behavior. They don't know what's going on, but something is bothering them, so they're acting out, or they're putting their head down, or they're oh, my belly's hurting, my head hurts, you know. So what are some of those allergies, or what are some of those illnesses, and what are some of those chronic illnesses that our students have? Be aware of those things, and also be aware of the medications that they're on. I had a little fellow that the medication that he was on made him thirsty, so he drank a lot of water. So what happens if you drink a lot of water? Exactly. And what happens when he gets in the classroom and the teacher says, you went before you got in here? And he's drunk a gallon of water already. Yeah, I did. I got to go again, you know. That's a big fight. And I'm like, look, you know, you want to fight with him for 30 minutes or let him go to the bathroom and back for 2? I mean, golly. So just be aware of those medications. Some medications may make them sleepy. Some may make them hyper. You know, some of them wear off half the day, and you're like, oh my gosh, yeah. Or you ask, did you have your medicine this morning? So I had a young man, he'd come in, his meds made him sleepy. I mean, he could not. We splashed water in her face. We got a drink out of the fountain. We tried coffee. We tried Mountain Dew. We'd walk up and down the hallway, but at 9 o'clock, he was done. I mean, that was all there was to it. There was nothing that I could do, or we could do. 9:30, he was out. He had to have a 30-minute nap. But when he woke up, he was as alert and knew exactly what was going on, caught up on everything he missed, went right on throughout the day. So we fixed it in his schedule that he could come to my classroom during that time. So, you know, that if he had to have his nap, he had to have his nap. But though, you just got to be aware of some of those medications. And also some of those medications impact how they can think or their comprehension and their cognitive abilities as well. So just be aware of the medications that are. And cognitive abilities. When we look at cognitive abilities, do the students understand what we're saying to them? Do we use language, kid-friendly language, or a lot of times do we use teacher talk? As one kid told me, he said, I don't understand anything you're saying, you're using teacher talk. And all the other kids understood it perfectly, and I was like, I don't know. And I had another kid explain to him what I had said, and he got it fine. But I was not taking into his cognitive abilities to understand what I was asking him to do. And sometimes when our kids get into that out of control stage, what do? We direct them, we give them instructions, we holler at them, we tell them if you don't sit down, this is going to happen, blah, blah, blah. What are they focusing on at that time? What they want. They don't hear anything at all that you're saying. The only thing that you do at that time is keep those kiddos safe, give them direct instructions. Sit down, please. Thank you. No big long sentences, no lectures or anything like that. Just be direct, straightforward with them, and keep everybody safe. Emotional capabilities, you know, some kids they can handle anything because they've been through a lot. All the traumas that they've seen, all the experiences, adverse childhood experiences they've had, they can handle anything. Other kids cry at the drop of a hat. I'm like that kid. I get tore up over every little thing, easy. I know I look big and bad now. I do. I get tore up. Well, you know, little puppy videos. Oh, it's so sweet. You know, get bad news. Oh God, you know, what am I going to do? Somebody said, well, you look, oh, yeah, I get tore up easy. And some of our kids are that same way. And some of our kids, like I said, can handle anything. So what is their emotional capabilities? And also you got to look at the kids, where are they at in that family environment? Are they the sibling that has to get the little fellas up, dressed, ready to school, make sure they're on the bus, make sure they got breakfast, make sure they got their clothes on, their homework done, and then they take care of themselves? Or are they some of our kids, some of our older kids may even be the head of the household. They may even be the ones that has to help take care of the finance or has to help take care of bringing money into the house, you know. How many of our high school kids that we work with have a job to help provide for the family? You know, and how many of our kids, high school kids, have a job just to provide for themselves and don't think about others? So, you know, you got to look at what is their role in that family unit. What do they have to do in that part of their life as well? Communication skills, we already talked a little bit about not being able to tell you what's going on. You know, sign language would be a great thing to teach some of our kiddos. So why do students misbehave? Some of them is attention seeking. You know, what's that look like? If you got a kiddo and you said, oh man, he's attention seeking, what does that look like in your classroom? Give me an example. No. Huh? So, yes, could be. What about Miss Kim, Miss Kim, Miss Kim, Miss Kim, Miss Kim? Yeah. Or so, yeah, have to have your attention always. Always wanting to be, some of it's class clown, always willing to help, always willing to throw an answer out there, always wanting to, like it says, just that attention. Everybody look at me, you know. So those are some of the reasons that we have those students, and they're wanting to participate, whining for help. You know, oh God, this is stupid, I can't do this. And then you go over there to them, oh yes you can, I'll help you get started. You know, the behavior was whining. The antecedent was, you give them an assignment, what was the consequence? Oh, I'll help you get started, we'll be fine. So that's, you know, that's how it happens. So how can we address some of those? What are some things that we could do as a result of this attention seeking? What do y'all think? I know you've got students that have done this, so what are some things that you all have done? Okay. If it's a behavior that you can ignore, planned ignoring is great. I mean, if it doesn't bother you or someone else, you know, ignore that behavior, yes. What about you ladies?
Like what you said, try to help. What do you need? Let me help, you know.
Right, yeah, okay. Pay them a little bit of attention.
Compromise.
Elaborate on that.
Well, I mean.
Bribe.
No, not
Yeah.
right, well.
So if it works, it works.
If it works.
But yeah, I know what you're
You
saying.
know what I'm saying?
Give them a choice.
Oh,
Or
awesome.
a reward, if they do, you know, what they're supposed to do.
Right.
Reward.
Right. I like the way you said give them a choice. I like the way you
Choice
said.
always works in I've got a 17-year-old, he's autistic.
Okay.
So my
Right.
whole life's been that, so.
Right. And
There's times you couldn't get him to do anything, but if I say, well, it's either this or this,
right.
pick one, you gotta do one or the other, he will.
Awesome. Oh,
I mean, you know,
excellent. That is awesome. Yeah.
that's worked for us.
And that's like I was talking to a guy, and he was talking about, I got a student that says, yeah, I'm not doing that. You can't make me write that blue ink. He said, well, I don't care. Would you want to use black or red or green? What color would you want to use? I want to use green.
See?
There you go.
There's your compromise.
There, yeah, exactly. There's your compromise. Offered them the choices.
everybody's happy.
Exactly. They thought they were getting what they wanted, which they did, and you still getting an assignment completed. So there you go. And it was like, you know, one of his rules was you can't use a pen in class. And I had a kiddo every class, all they wanted to do was use a pen. And he said, I didn't fight it. There's no reason to. I just gave them an erasable ink pen, and if they made a mistake, he said, you know, said everybody wanted to use a pen then. He says, I just gave them all erasable pens. He said, there's no reason to fight that. You got to pick your battles, and that's one of those things that, oh my goodness, have a kiddo to come to class, don't have a pencil, and the teacher loses it. You know, you can't get in here without a pencil. Have a box of pencils for him. I mean, goodness gracious, you don't know what the kid went through to get there that morning. At least be, you know, provide them with a little bit of stuff. Anyway, all right, so power seeking. That's that power struggle. You can't make me do this. You ever hear that? I'm not doing that. I'm not writing that in pencil. That's power struggle. And first thing we do is we fire back at them. Oh, yes, you are. Oh, no, I'm not. You can't make me. And then you're caught up in that power struggle, and who wins? The kid wins, no matter what. So try to avoid those power struggles. But like you said, offer them choices. Give them a chore to do in the classroom. You know, give them that opportunity to be up in front of the class, showing that they can help. You know, or just tell them, yeah, you're right, I can't make you do that assignment, but you know the consequences for not completing your assignment. So I hope you make a wise decision, and I'll help you get started. And the sooner we get started, the sooner we're finished and ready to rock and roll and have a good time afterwards. So yes, agree with them. Also, revenge seeking, you know, that's where you got to make sure that that would look like, you know, just the kids destroying property, destroying school property, trying to do stuff, saying mean things to you to try to get back at you for something that they perceive that you did toward them as wrong. And so some of the ways that you can combat that, or not combat, but to address that, will be to, you know, acknowledge that they're upset. Acknowledge what's bothering them. I understand you're upset. Let's focus on what you're really upset about. I know you're yelling at me. I know you're calling me bad names, but what's really bothering you? I've not, you know, what can I do to help you? Like you said, how can I help you? How can we address this situation so we can work together so you can have a better day? You know, I'll use those I and we messages. I want to help you so we can have a great day. Just the revenge. And avoidance of failure. Sometimes our kiddos don't want to do something because it's too difficult for them to do. And I think in her book, one of the lines says, I'd rather be seen as a bad kid instead of a dumb kid. And some of our special ed kids, I'd rather be seen as a bad than instead of a dumb one.
That's their defense mechanism.
It is, yes. Or coping mechanism. Let's use that, because that's how they cope with those stressors or those situations. It is defensive, but that's
That
their
is
way
how
of
to deal
coping
with
it.
it.
Yeah. And so make sure that you give them an assignment that they are successful with, and then give them a little more difficult assignments. And then say, all right, don't freak out. We're going to practice. You know, I'll help you get through these first 4 or 5 questions. We'll work together. We'll practice. If we make a mistake, it's all right. I need to practice over. I've done things wrong. I said, you know, practice and show them it's all right to make a mistake. No, I really messed up. But they didn't know. So it's just ways to make sure that they are not a failure, and especially in front of their peers, because their peers are more important to them than you are. And then their teacher or their parents. So their peers, they got to look good in front of their peers. All right, good. All right, so quick thing. Like I said, our book, we are in chapter 15, pages 138 to 148, forms 47 to 52. With this one form 48 is a behavior change plan. And so we'll go through this. It is in your book, the same thing. So what you do is after a behavior or after an incident, you want to sit down with the kiddo and ask them, well, what happened? And in this example, the kid was kicked out of class. Well, what happened before that? What was the antecedent? And you may not use the word antecedent. You may not use the word incident, but what happened before you was kicked out of class? Why did you get sent out of class? And listen to what that student says and take their perception, take their perspective of what happened. All right, so how did you respond? You know, in this example, I was trying to do my work and Doug kept turning around bugging me. Yeah. Would that upset some of our kids? Right, yeah. You know, especially if you got one that is focused and trying to get something done and a peer turn around aggravating or whatever. So threw a pencil at him and told him to shut his mouth. So, all right, so what are some responses that we could have done? Okay, yeah, that's what happened. That's what happened as a result. What happened to you is you got put out of the classroom. What could we have done differently? And what are some other things that you can do? And it's just a simple little form that you can use to kind of put closure to the incident and kind of help them to decide on what are some other ways that I can handle this in the future. And I gave you some examples of some of these other handouts here. Form 47, you want to talk this over with your teachers, or you want to talk it over with each other, come up with ideas on your own. So what happens if a student refuses to work? I'd always provide them with, okay, this is, you know, you need to get 3 pages completed or 3 problems completed. If you get those 3 problems completed, This is the reward. This is what you get afterwards. If we don't get those 3 completed, I'm sorry, but you're not going to get a reward. You're not going to get this incentive, whatever, however you want to call it. So make sure that they know that the reward or the positive after that is got something that they want. And something rewarding to the kid is not rewarding to you. It is rewarding to that kid. What does that kid find motivating? What is that student going to work for? I had a couple of fellows that they wanted to go to the library to read. I figured go outside to play. No, they wanted to go to the library and read. Well, that was their reward. That was what motivated them. You know, if I told them we was going outside, oh, they misbehave all day long because they didn't want to go outside, so they wanted to go to the library. I didn't find that rewarding, but they did. So it is what the kid finds rewarding. And this is that Form 47, which is in the back of your book. So these are some things that you may want to talk over with your teacher. Student swears quietly at their desk. Is it hurting you? Is it bothering anyone else? They're just sitting there, rah, 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 rah. Why are you going to make a big deal out of it? You may just walk by and say, remember, just quietly talk to them. Don't make a big deal out of it, because if you need to shut that up, what's going to happen? You need to make me. First thing comes up, you can't make me. So just be aware of those things. Student yells profanities at staff students. We always have a scripted response, something that you're going to say every time, and be consistent with using it every time. I have one of the ladies that worked with me, the students kept saying we wanted to do inappropriate sexual things with her, and she said, "It's not on the schedule today, honey, sorry." And he's like, "What schedule? Didn't you hear what I said?" She said, "I did, but it's not on the schedule today." And that every time, and finally the kid's like, "There's no use even saying it, it don't bother," And so I was like, well, all right. So make sure you have something scripted. So the other thing is a data collection form. We talked a little bit about that ABC form. This is one, if we're looking at an observable behavior. Remember, we said observable behavior passes that stranger test. You have to be able to tell what that behavior is. Angry, is that an observable behavior? No. Throwing chairs, can I count how many times that happens? Can I see how far that chair went? We all agree that that's throwing a chair. All right, so what is that observable behavior? And then you want to look at the student that we're looking at. How many times does that happen? And then we look at peers as compared to peers. So if we have a student that taps his desk 15 times and we have a peer that taps their desk 20 times, which student's got the bigger problem? The student that we're looking at or the peer? The peer. But because our kiddos are the ones that are in the special classes, they're usually the ones that get looked at harder, under a microscope more. Is that me? And this is just some reinforcement charts. And I'll be quick about this one that we used. Thank you for whoever it was. A couple that I gave you. This one is what am I working toward? And you can make this whatever level you need. Just basically, I'm working for Play-Doh. I got to get 4 chores done or 4 activities done. And once I get those done, I get to use my Play-Doh. And then have a timer for 15 minutes or whatever. And then reset it. And you want to make these, you don't want it all day long, because you got to have a time frame that they can work toward. Another one that we could use is this one. You could put, the name and whatever and what they're working for, a picture of it, or write it in. And then they have to do 5 tasks before they get that reward or whatever. This is a school home note. This school home note is a way to keep communication open between the school and the parents, or the school and the home. And it just lets them know how the kid did during the day. And you can go to kyself.com and download this form and change it and edit it or whatever if you want to use this. But it has the rules or the expectations over here. And if they did well, they get a big smiley face. If they had a rough time or didn't do so well, had to have a couple of reminders, whatever, you get to straighten. If they didn't follow rules at all or expectations at all, then they get the frowny face. But you want to try to make sure that, the positive is reported more than the negative days, because it's a whole lot easier to make that negative call or that call home when they've been bad if you've built up those positives. just like the kids that you work with. It's a lot easier to have to call them down or to address behaviors in a negative way if you've got those positives built up. So be as positive as you can. And then here's just one for the week. And this is a check-in and check-out. Check-in and check-out is a Tier 2 behavioral intervention strategy that helps you to connect with the student. They check in with you in the morning, first get there. They take a point sheet with them throughout the day. The teacher rates them on how well they did. They check out with you at the end of the day to see if they get a reward, see if they get an incentive, or see if they need encouragement to do better tomorrow. So, and I thank you all. We got any questions? And then one more thing while y'all taking a break, and then I am done. And if I tear up, don't y'all laugh at me, okay? Wait a minute. That's not what I wanted. Yes, it is. But, all right. So like I said, don't y'all laugh at me if I get excited. All right. This is called Every Opportunity.
Talking quietly.
Hey, Miss Merida, how you doing?
We need you inside.
How do you think that makes us feel? I forgot my number.
What's your name?
Jordan?
What's your last name?
Carter?
Go ahead.
School is hard enough.
Come on in, sit down quietly at your desk, and begin writing.
This kind of stuff just makes it harder.
I said quietly, please. Who's talking? Is it you, Sophie? Don't let it be you.
Don't believe me?
Sophie.
Please just watch.
I'm not up here for me, I'm up here for you. Pay attention. Okay? Now somebody answer me. Somebody needs to answer me really fast.
Every time we're ignored or yelled at or silenced, a teacher takes away what's possible.
No horseplay, no running, and especially no talking.
Moment by moment.
Miss McGarity, your student's behavior yesterday in the lunchroom, it was terrible. Next time, silent lunch.
Did you hear that? Stay in line and catch a bubble. I'm not playing.
If this is education, we're in trouble. Bye, Miss McGarity. Frederick Douglass said, once you learn to read, you'll be forever free. The way it is now, 2 of the 3 of us will never be able to really read. It doesn't have to be this way.
Hey, Jordan. How you doing? Good.
Everyone we meet throughout our day can make a difference.
I've been waiting for you to arrive.
All the difference.
Good, how are you? Hi, Jordan. Bye, Jason.
Good morning, Jordan.
How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. How are you?
Good.
Go ahead and put your number in.
Talk with us, not at us.
That's okay. I'll look it up for you. Go ahead, sweetheart.
Okay.
All right. Have a
Teach us what we need to know. That's how we get smarter.
Well, good morning, Sophie, Janicia, and Jordan.
And when you talk with us and teach us, give us bigger and bigger words.
Now what I'd like you to do, children, is turn around and converse with your neighbor and discuss where the mother might have gone.
Words that we can use to read and understand.
She is prey for eagles, so she hunts at night.
And that will take us places we can never reach without you.
Remember, we're entering the learning zone. Now, how can we show our respect to the children and teachers who are working?
We can walk quietly.
Yes. Okay, kids, so what I'd like you to do is continue writing your narrative, documenting your emotions if you were the baby owl and your mother abandoned you in the nest.
What can you do? Learn all that you can so that you can challenge us to be our best.
You would have stayed and assisted them in whatever they needed.
Share yourself with us and show us how to share ourselves with others. Give us courage. Give us compassion. Help us find our own voices so we can become who we you're meant to be. Why would you want to silence us?
Just a little something to think about. Take every opportunity that you have to build a relationship with the kiddos that you work with, not only the ones that you work with, but all the kids in the school. You never know which one of those kiddos out there doesn't have anyone in that school that has a relationship with them. So thank you all for everything that you do. Like I said, you're rock stars, you're awesome, and I appreciate it. Thanks.